Number 10.
Alright guys, for number 10, this one is going to piss a lot of people off, but I've watched the films too many times, so here goes.
Part 1? Really?
Yes.
Oh, I hate you.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, or?
No, you go first, because I
Okay.
want to hear your rationale for this one.
Alright. I do not enjoy the first Friday the 13th. I really don't. I think it's one of the most boring entries in the Friday the 13th franchise. And it's not even the whole aspect of, Jason. It's just that, listen, we wouldn't have anything with regards to the series without the first one. But unfortunately, look, if you lined up all 12 movies and told me the ones to pick out that I wanted to watch the most, number one's going to be one of the last ones. And even though I can recognize, the brilliance of Sean S. Cunningham, bringing this series to us, and the excellent, acting of Betsy Palmer in her iconic role, and obviously you have the makeup effects of Tom Savini. But my biggest problem with the film is I didn't think the kills were all that great. Even how Kevin Bacon went out, with the arrow through the neck. And I just felt that the film was just horribly paced. I found it incredibly boring. Even though I know it's technically a slasher, but it's more of a whodunit story because, if you went into the film, not knowing, who was killing the counselors off, that kind of thing, it's kind of a murder mystery kind of aura to it. But unfortunately, it's just, for me, it's a really boring film to get through. And it's just that, and unfortunately, I didn't find a lot of the camp counselors, really likable. I didn't think, all the acting in it was all that great. Betsy Palmer's performance was great. Adrienne King's performance as Alice was great, but everyone else was just literally forgettable. And it's just that, unfortunately for me, it was just a really boring entry. It never gave me a sense of excitement. It never gave me, I didn't really care how it really turned out. But I do understand, without the first one, we wouldn't have, all the other great entries in the Friday the 13th franchise. So even though it may be one of my least favorite films in the franchise, I can still recognize the greatness for what it is.
So why don't I like Part 3? I guess I don't like Part 3 for the reason that, again, you stated that you didn't like the pacing on Part 1,
Yeah.
right? I didn't like the pacing on Part 3 because I felt like, the kills were great. Don't get me wrong, the kills were great, but I found that the build-up went on a little bit way too long. For one thing, you have those two people who own the grocery store in the beginning.
Yep.
How long did that go on? That whole thing went on for like 5 or 10 minutes or so. You didn't need that. 5 minutes, like maybe even like 3 or 4 tops.
Yeah.
I'd say you would have been able to, didn't have to milk it as much as they did in that one. And another thing I found that they were doing, which was in vogue at the time of the 80s, was they were using the 3D effects.
Okay.
This was another thing that they were just they didn't really need to do this over and over and over. They just kind of hit you over the head with it. And again, because we were watching it on home video, home media, I guess if you were in theaters, you would have been able to have more of an appreciation for it.
Yeah, it's more of a novelty than...
Yeah, but aside from that, I didn't think it was really necessary. I'm sorry, guys. I hate to be ragging on number 3. This is the one which he gets his iconic mask. And, this is the one that kind of launches him into pop culture stardom. But
Yeah.
no, because of the long, drawn-out stalking sequences and the 3D effects, that's what puts it at the lower end of my list. But that's all I have to say on that one.
Number 9.
All right, guys, for number 9, we have Reboot, and I have Part 3.
Okay.
So who wants to go first?
I'll go first, I suppose. What can be said about the reboot? Well, it wasn't my most hated film. They did convey some interesting ideas. For one thing, how does Jason move so quickly from one part of the camp to the other? And they took that and they elevated that and they explained it a little bit more. Him being, backwoods kind of a character surviving in the wild and whatnot, it would only seem to make sense that he had his own kind of underground warren that he would move around from, one part of the camp to the other. So I thought that was interesting. The images of Jason Voorhees running the way he did, that wasn't really in character, I don't think, with Jason.
Yeah.
That was just, I don't know, like, it kind of goes back to that old meme that you have is like, it's a Halloween meme. No matter how fast you run, Michael Myers can walk faster.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it doesn't really ring as the kind of thing that, a slasher would do, I don't think. But, number 3, why is that ranked number 9?
All right, number 3, for some of the problems you have with it, unfortunately the film struggles with adequate build-up.
Okay. So we agree on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
The problem with 3 is that it is really too long, between kills, because you have the 2 people, at the grocery mart, and then you have the 3 bikers, and then the rest of the mass killing doesn't really happen until the last 15/20 minutes of the film. But one of the biggest problems I have with it is that even though, as you said before, this is the film where he gets the iconic mask, I just don't really enjoy this film because it does have a really good kill in it that I really like, and it's the guy doing the handstand that gets stabbed right through the middle.
That was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, but I think one of my biggest problems with 3 is that the cast was very unlikable. I was not convinced, with the survivor girl, her name, doesn't ring a bell with me right now. I wasn't convinced by her. I really didn't like a lot of the cast. I wasn't, fond of Shelley. I didn't like, the girl's boyfriend Rick and the stoners. And it's just like, in all honesty, I couldn't wait to see everybody die. And it's just that, sometimes with slashers, that's the fun. It's fun to cheer for the villain, because you want to see all the inventive ways, these people are going to die. But in all honesty, I just wish they killed everybody in the movie. Which they almost did, because it did have one survivor girl.
It's always sad when that happens, when we just have like a bunch of stock characters and we don't care, and you just kind of want the movie to get to the ending already.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And it's just like, and I just kept saying to myself, can we just get to the end, because this is just getting drawn out and drawn out and drawn out. And obviously, the 3D gimmick, that's what it was. It was a gimmick, the whole thing with the yo-yo and the juggling and the snake coming out at you and getting the the spear gun to the face and that kind of thing. I can appreciate the inventiveness of number 3, because it does have a relatively high body count, but unfortunately a lot of aspects of the film just come across as not memorable.
And another thing I wanted to add with regards to part 3, since we both covered part 3 now, it seemed like a hodgepodge of things they were just trying out as well. And another thing that they just kind of threw in at the last second was the rotting corpse of Jason's mother.
Yep.
That hallucination at the very end. It seemed really out of place. I did not see the point of it.
Neither did I.
Number 8.
All right, guys, for number 8, we have... Ouch! 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 Really? Really? Yeah, your final chap. Okay.
If it makes you feel any better, I do have like one of the Tommy Jarvis's one in my top 4 or 5.
All right. Okay. Fair.
This one.
All right. You got to go first. You got to tell me why you don't like part 4.
Why don't I like part 4? It's nothing against the kills. The kills were good. It's nothing against any of the gore factor. Like, the pacing was good. And I like Corey Feldman's performance as Tommy Jarvis. That was also another highlight for the film. If it makes you feel any better, it's not on the lower end of the spectrum.
Right.
It's like
in the middle
end of the spectrum.
All right.
But I think it had something to do with Corey Feldman's Tommy, because he was a horror fan. And he was using the psychological warfare part to just kind of get into Jason's head, because that seems to be one of the things that it doesn't beat Jason, but it kind of just makes him, you know, pause and just kind of reflect a little bit on himself. So the problem I found was the whole cerebral part has already been done, I think. In part one, like, well, we kind of know that, you know, his mother is not all right in the head. And in part two, we know that the survivor girl puts on the sweater to kind of act as Jason's mother. And that also kind of makes him pause and kind of, you know, stop for a second. But I don't know, by part four, I just felt like that had kind of already run its course. Like, I didn't really feel as though there was anywhere else to really go inside of Jason's head, because it had kind of already been done. I mean, does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, alright.
In a way, I'll save my thoughts for 4 when it makes my list.
Part 4 is on the higher end of your spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, alright.
Alright, now, I normally put Jason X a lot higher than any other die-hard Friday the 13th fan, and this is the reason why. I can appreciate the campiness of the Friday the 13th series, and when it wants to become silly, and when it wants to become, you know, a little bit on the cheese factor. Even though, you know, yeah, it's one of the weaker entries, but I still get a lot of enjoyment out of this film for like a lot of reasons. You know, obviously it is Kane Hodder's last time as Jason, but, you know, I just love a lot of the kills in the film. You know, the cryogenically frozen kill is a classic, and it's just that. But I love a lot of the banter. I love a lot of the comedy in the actual in Jason X. I find that movie incredibly quotable, and I find it incredibly funny. You know, basically, you know, to have the teacher confronts him, and he says, "It's okay, it's okay." You know, he only wants his machete back, and you know, when he's fighting, you know, the big black guy for the first time, and he gets stabbed in the stomach, and then he says, "It's going to take more than that to take me out." And then he stabs him the second time, and then he says, "Yeah, that'll do it." For me, you know, I love the look of classic Jason, and I love the look of Uber Jason, but it's just, I love the campiness. I love the fact that you know, in the hologram scene, you know, they went back to, you know, an homage to the campground, and they ended up, you know, killing, you know, 2 half-naked girls, you know, with
they
with
went
the
back
typical,
to the sleeping bag kill.
Yeah, and they went back to the sleeping bag kill. And also another silly reason why I got a lot of fondness for Jason X is I have a huge crush on Lisa Ryder. And Lisa Ryder is the actress who plays KM, the android. I thought her black leather outfit, you know, with that short black hair, even though, you know, it was a wig, I thought she looked incredibly beautiful in that film. And for me, it's one of those movies that it's so bad, it's good. And in the grand scheme of things, it's still a bad movie, but for me, it's an entertaining movie. And, you know, that's what I look forward to when it comes to the actual Friday the 13th series. It has to be entertaining. So despite the whole far-out concept of going out in space, I do enjoy the cheesiness, I do enjoy the campiness, and for me it's just a good mix of being cheesy, being funny, with a whole ton of gore as well.
So these are our guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
Yours is Jason X, mine is Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 7.
Alright guys, for number 7, wow, ow, ow.
I figured Freddy versus Jason would have been higher up on the list for you. You didn't
It's,
like the whole thing that they were like squaring off against each other?
you know, it's a mid-tier one. It's a mid-tier one. So you want to go first, or no? Wait, I'll go first.
Well, we've already started
Yeah.
the Freddy versus Jason thing now. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So Freddy versus Jason. You know, I have read, you know, Kane Hodder's book, and I know how badly, you know, he wanted to do this film, and he was absolutely heartbroken. Or, you know, listen, nothing against Ken Kersinger. You know, I think with what he had, you know, I understand why they went with him as Jason. You know, he was taller, you know, he was more muscular, that kind of thing, and, you know, the size difference was much more prevalent, you know, between him and Robert Englund. But I consider Freddy vs. Jason to be one of the mid-tier Jason films. It's just that, you know, when you have 2 horror icons, it's really hard to balance them both. But it's just like, unfortunately, one of my biggest problems with Freddy vs. Jason is one of the things that I've always enjoyed about the Friday the 13th series is that I did enjoy the inventiveness of Jason's kills. But unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, we only got one really inventive kill, and it was really one of the first people he killed, which was, you know, in the bed, and then he reversed the bed and, you know, and ended up cracking his back in the process. But it's just like, I understand it's going to be hard to balance two really good horror villains, but it's just like, I found Jason in this film to be very basic. And because the majority of his kills, you know, were done by the machete, which is his weapon of choice. But it's just that, you know, the cornfield massacre scene, that was a really good scene. But it's just that, you know, even the fight against Freddy was pretty convincing. But as much as I'm really not a Freddy fan, and as much as it hurts me to say that, I felt that Freddy stole all the thunder away from that fight. And that's one of the things that really disheartened me the most, because even though I know Jason doesn't speak, but Freddy had all the great lines. He had all the great inventive moves. You know, basically, you know, he was sending, you know, the cart down at Jason, and, you know, all the rebarb, you know, slice him in half, and, you know, the whole "hey asshole" clip, and that kind of thing. And I felt that Jason, even though he killed the majority of the people in the film, I felt he was severely underutilized. And I don't buy into the whole fact that Jason is weak to water, and, you know, while Freddy is weak to fire, even though, you know, water killed Jason, fire killed Freddy, but they're both supernatural beings, so technically both of them shouldn't have had any harm, because Freddy has used fire to kill people, Jason has drowned people in the films, and I didn't like that aspect of it. And it's just that I'm always going to be Team Jason. Doesn't matter if you put him into any kind of versus film. But it's just like, in this film, I always felt that, you know, Freddy was always getting the upper hand. You know, it's just that, you know, Freddy was really destroying him all the time, you know, especially, you know, when he turned him into, you know, a ping pong ball and started banging him around the boiler room. Mm-hmm. And it's just that, you know, even though, as I said before, Jason killed the majority of the movie in that film, and it's a great film. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a mid-tier film when it comes to all Friday the 13th films, but I just wish they could have done more with the actual Jason character.
Okay, that's fair. I'll withhold all judgment until I get to Freddy vs. Jason. But with regards to number 7, which I think was Jason Lives?
No, New Blood.
New Blood, right. With regards to New Blood, I felt that this was the point when I was realizing that the franchise was starting to run out of steam. It was starting to, you know, it had done most of the things. Like, people had played Jason, you know, I mean, not Jason himself, but other killers have come into the fold who have, you know, taken on the mask of Jason, right? I mean, his mother had played Jason. His, the guy who was upset about his kid in part, he was upset about Jason. So, with regards to number 7, I mean, it doesn't rank low on my end of films, because I enjoyed it because it was good dialogue. I mean, it was well written, I found. It wasn't the kind of film, it was kind of in the middle. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't really good either. I mean, Tommy Jarvis made some pretty stupid decisions when it came to digging up Jason's body, for one thing.
No, Tommy Jarvis wasn't in 7.
He wasn't in 7? Which one am I thinking?
You're probably thinking
Jason Lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7 is
with the telepath, the psychic, Tina.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes. Sorry. This is, yes. I had to get my notes realigned here. But this is where I realized that the franchise was starting to run out of steam. It was starting to jump the shark because they were going the Carrie route with regards to, you know, they're introducing supernatural elements in it. I mean, they've done it before because, you know, Jason he's been resurrected from the dead at this point.
Yep.
So, and, I mean, I don't really know what else to say on the topic of part 7. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't that good. I mean, it was almost making us want to root for the character a little bit more. I mean, the female character. What was her name?
Tina.
Tina, yeah. But I didn't really buy the whole telepath scene. I mean, I think that was just them trying to take something else and working into the franchise, but didn't really pan out, I think. And the whole resurrecting of the father was also...
A little too far out there for you.
That was way too far out there, yeah.